All right, let's talk about a career path that pretty much breaks all the rules. This is a story about resilience, about making some seriously bold moves, and about one huge decision that, on the surface, looks like a total disaster. But trust me, it holds a massive lesson for all of us.
You didn't pay me for 3 months. This was my compensation. That one sentence, wow, that's where this whole story kicks off. And it's not just about a job, right? It's about someone deciding from the very beginning that they were not going to be undervalued, period.
So where does a story like this even begin? Well, like a lot of careers, it starts with a first job. And in this case, it came with a really bitter first lesson about how the professional world can work. Imagine this. You land a job in customer support. The deal is 1,500 rupees a month, simple enough. But then, after 3 entire months of showing up and working, your total pay is just 1,500 rupees. That's not a late paycheck. That's basically being told 2/3 of your work was worthless. So what do? Most people would just quit, furious. But not this guy. He figured out a way to collect the debt he was owed. For the next 2 months, he used the company's dial-up internet connection from his house. He took back the exact value of what they owed him. It's our first clue that we're dealing with someone who thinks strategically, not just emotionally. So, after that whole ordeal, the story takes a sharp turn. The next chapter is all about what we're calling the night shift grind. This was a huge step up, a real opportunity, but man, it came at a punishing cost.
I mean, the difference here is just night and day. He goes from being cheated out of his pay to earning a steady 30 rupees an hour at MTBC, a legit US-based company. And it's not just about the money, it's about stability, about hope. For the first time, it feels like there's an actual path forward.
But that opportunity, it demanded absolutely everything. The workday started at midnight and went till 8 in the morning. Then, he'd hop on his bike, ride across town, and somehow make it to his 9 a.m. university class to study for a computer science degree. This wasn't just a schedule, it was a brutal, non-stop test of sheer endurance. And that level of exhaustion, well, it leads to some pretty wild moments. Get this, one of his colleagues, who also had a day job at a store, was so out of it that while he was typing up medical data, he accidentally wrote a note from his other job. Just typed it right in. Ice cream powder not found. A perfect little slip from a completely burnt-out brain.
And it gets better. Another night, a different colleague just disappears during the 2 a.m. break. They look everywhere for him, and where do they find him? Fast asleep in the bathroom, where he'd made a makeshift bed out of a towel on the floor. You kind of have to laugh, but it really shows you just how close to the edge everyone was running.
Okay, so after surviving the intensity of that night shift, the next step was, well, it was a detour. Sometimes the only way to figure out where you're supposed to go is to first take a little walk down the completely wrong path.
He ended up taking a sales job, and of course, he was good at it. But after just 1 month, he walked away. He learned something super important right then and there. Just because you're good at something doesn't mean you should do it. Your ability does not automatically equal your passion.
So he got back into his field at a company called Ovex, and he started climbing the ladder fast. Got promoted to team leader, things are looking great. He stays for 2 years. But that night shift, it was like a cage. It was holding him back from his real goal, which was to get a master's degree. He was successful, sure, but he was totally stuck. Something had to give. And this right here is the moment the whole story hinges on. He makes a decision that to anyone on the outside looks like a massive career-ending mistake. This was a true leap of faith. Okay, so at Ovex, he's a team leader. He's making a really solid 35,000 rupees a month. I mean, by any normal standard, he had made it. He had a stable, comfortable career. And then he quit. He quit that job to take a new one that paid just 15,000 rupees a month. No, he didn't get laid off or demoted. He chose to cut his own salary by more than half. Just look at that drop. It's staggering. To anybody looking in from the outside, this is career suicide, a complete and total reset. Why in the world would anyone do this?
And that's the multi-thousand rupee question, isn't it? Why on earth would you willingly take a 57% pay cut right when you're hitting your stride? What could possibly be worth that kind of sacrifice?
Here's the answer. It wasn't a step back at all. It was what you might call a strategic downgrade. See, he wasn't just accepting a lower salary, he was buying something much more valuable with that money. He was buying a day job,
And a day job meant he could finally go get his master's degree, which was the key to unlocking a whole new future. It was a short-term hit for a massive long-term payoff.
So the big question is, did this absolutely crazy gamble pay off? Well, let's see how that strategic downgrade actually became the launchpad for an incredible climb. This is where the story truly comes full circle.
The journey back up started with that low-paying government job, but that job allowed him to get his master's. The master's led to an internship, which led to a full-on programmer role. And the final destination? He became the assistant director at the very same university he used to ride his bike to every morning, half asleep, after working all night.
Think about that for a second. It is the ultimate full circle moment. He returned to the place where he struggled as a student, not as a sleepy kid on a bike, but as a leader. That was the real return on his investment.
So what can we pull from all this? Well, for one, it proves that sometimes a short-term sacrifice can set you up for a huge long-term win. It shows that success is almost never a straight line up. And it reminds us that figuring out what you don't want, like that 1 month in sales, is just as important as knowing what you do. And maybe most of all, that toughness you build in those early hard jobs, that's the foundation for everything else.
So it kind of makes you think, doesn't it? We're always so focused on climbing, on getting that next promotion, the next raise. But maybe the most powerful move you can make isn't up at all. It's worth asking yourself, what step back in your own life could actually be your next giant leap forward?